Hey guys, what is up? Carter here. Got another video for you. Today we're going to be talking about the CQC Chisel Grind. Why did I say CQC? The Emerson Chisel Grind. The kind of what he is famous and notorious for, this chisel ground blade that you often see. But first, let's talk a little bit about what a chisel ground blade is. Basically, it means it's only ground on one side. You can see how this side is completely flat. I mean, other than maybe a slight area where the burr's been removed. And all the grinding takes place on this side. So on this side you have a primary bevel and a secondary bevel. Now if this was a zero ground chisel ground blade, if that makes sense, you'd only have one bevel. So this big bevel here would run all the way to the very edge, and you would not have this secondary bevel down here. That's what a zero ground blade is, which I believe Ernie does on all of his custom chisel ground blades. I could be wrong, but I believe that is the case. Now, the idea behind the chisel ground blade, there's a couple of benefits to it. One is that you get a very strong edge because you have a lot of material on that side, so you get a very strong edge. It's quite thick behind the bevel, so you're less likely to chip and roll and things like that. You know, not counting steels and stuff like that. So that's one of the benefits. Another benefit, and this was somewhat argued, is ease of sharpening. Basic idea being, if you only have to sharpen one side, you've reduced your effort in half, more or less. So that's something that you know, you'll hear a lot of, that it's just easier to sharpen because you're only dealing with one side. And the other thing is cutting performance, and that's where things get a little bit tricky with the Emerson chisel ground blade. Chisel ground blades were mostly used in culinary crafts prior to the introduction into kind of the folding knife world and you know, the other use knife world. And the reason for that is, what you do is, when you'd be cutting something, when you cut something with a chisel ground blade, this side, the flat ground side, wants to go straight in, and then it's going to push the opposite side of whatever you're cutting. It's going to kind of pry that away. Oops, sorry, I hit the camera there. It's going to pry that away on this side. So rather than a V ground blade like this, where it's kind of even on both sides, so you're cutting through, let's say you're cutting through a material, if it's V ground, it's going to be putting pressure this way and kind of splitting things. And you know, that can be not ideal when you're cutting through something. Like if you're cutting through something here and you're constantly chopping like this, you want this side of the edge to go straight down and kick whatever you're chopping off this way. Or if you're cutting through like this, you want the flat side to drive straight in and then kind of curl the material up on this side. Now, the problem is that Ernie did his the opposite of the traditional way. Normally, for a right-handed user, you'd want the flat side here and all the grind here. So when you're cutting on something this way, you're, you know, popping things off in the opposite direction. This would be something you would see more for a left-handed user that was cutting this way, kick things off this way. Now, therein lies, now here's where the controversy is, and I apologize if I get this wrong, but from my understanding, what I've read and heard from both Ernie's explanation as well as other people, his basic reasoning behind using this chisel grind, besides the ones I stated about being stronger and easier to sharpen and things like that, but the reason why it's flipped like this really comes down to looks. My interpretation of what he said is basically his knives are not designed for culinary activities. You know, it's not designed for chopping and cutting up food and things like that. They're meant for other reasons, and so his thinking is that, so it doesn't really matter what side it's on, so I chose the side that was more visually appealing, so that the show side would have all the nice grinds and the logo and things like that, and left the flat side to the other side, because the other reasons for it needing to be flipped doesn't pertain to what the usage of my knife is for. You know, why I made this knife, I didn't make it to be used in a kitchen. So therefore, I'm not too concerned about, you know, some of those aspects on the cutting. That is what I've heard, well, not heard, but that's what I've read that he has said about why he set it up in this particular configuration. So, you know, like I said, if I'm missing anything on there or if there's any additional points, please let me know. But that's from what I understand from things I've read and things like that. That's kind of how the reversed chisel grind idea comes from. Alright guys, just wanted to give a quick look at another quick look at all my CQC7s and talk a little bit about, how did this get in here? It's not supposed to be in there. Talk a little bit about the Emerson chisel grind, because it is a little different than a lot of the chisel grinds that you will see out on the market. Alright guys, later.